Welcome back. You're watching News Centre. Members of the Parliamentary Panel on Finance met representatives of big tech companies like Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple and others. The panel questioned their use of data, the fee imposed on app developers and other alleged anti-competitive practices. Tech companies defend their policies and claim there is no dearth of competition. Amar Patnaik, BJD MP and member of the Parliamentary Committee on Finance, is with us right now. Mr. Patnaik, there are a number of issues that the committee has been examining, ranging from high subscription fees charged by some of these big tech companies, how they use data and whether the usage of data bars the entry of competitors, the keyword billing policy, policies to remove apps as well. What was the big concern that the committee has been focusing on?
See, the concern with the big tech companies are well known. For example, market dominance because of the network effect that they have, the pricing, the bundling of products, and of course the use of data. So these issues are already in the public domain. The exact deliberations in the Parliamentary Committee, of course, I can't divulge because of the confidentiality clauses. But however, I can say that on these big issues, how the big tech companies are using this market dominance because of the power they enjoy for having this network effect. And we must also admit that a lot of our innovation is emerging out of this network effect. So these are the questions, these are the issues around which questions have been raised in the public domain. And of course, these are the questions which are agitating the minds of the Parliamentary Committee, and therefore were posed to the big tech companies.
Right. One thing that many of the Indian players have been asking for, and something that parliamentarians have been also asking for, is a level playing field. How will that be ensured? Does the Indian legal system have enough safeguards to ensure fair competition, or do you feel that it is time for a new law?
Absolutely on dot the question, bang on, because I think the competition law that we have were designed at a time when the big tech's network effect and the network effect's power to gain market dominance was not factored into the law at that time. So therefore, there is definitely the right time to review those laws, whether it is to come in through an amendment or whether a new law is required, is something that has to be debated, that the government will have to decide. But there's no question about the fact that this entire issue has to be addressed by the Competition Commission from a very different lens, and not the lens that is used for the physical world, because this is the digital world. We also have to leverage the fact of digital economy, pumping up the economy. We shouldn't be stifling it by over-regulation. So the regulatory challenges are immense, but not to say that there is no requirement of regulation. There is a requirement because huge amounts of data are collected and used by these big tech companies through multiple algorithms, and many of those algorithms could be biased. So therefore, I think there is a need for regulation, but we have to be careful to see that in the name of antitrust practices, it shouldn't happen that the entire explosion that we are seeing for good in our country in a digital ecosystem shouldn't get really affected.
Right. A question in the minds of policymakers in India and also abroad is what will be the level of compliance with the EU Digital Markets Act, the latest Digital Markets Act that the European Union has come up with. How closely are you looking at that, and how important would be for India to take a cue from the Digital Markets Act of the European Union?
That would be useful. The EU Digital Markets Act will be useful, but the context will have to be analyzed. The context in the European Union is that there is free, the big tech can actually get into retail, and therefore their mode of e-commerce, let's say, is a hybrid mode. Whereas in our system, it is not hybrid. They can only use their services as a platform and get buyers and sellers over there. So to do a cut and paste kind of a thing from the EU Digital Markets Act would probably not be proper. Our context will be different, and therefore we have to tailor the Digital Markets Act to our needs. And most significantly, we also have to understand that India is now growing in the startup ecosystem. The unicorns are coming, so we shouldn't be stifling that innovation that these players are coming in and creating wealth as well as jobs and employment at the tier 2 and tier 3 cities level. The question of level playing field is, of course, the most important thing. So a principle-based system could actually be built into the new competition law or an amendment to the existing competition law. And these principles would actually be the underlying factors to give a level playing field. The rules could actually then keep changing depending on how the market evolves on the big tech side. And therefore, the bringing in the EU Digital Markets Act and putting it lock, stock, and barrel into the Indian scenario would probably not be proper. And I think all of us are cognizant of this.
Right. Just to ask you about a couple of things that the committee has been examining, and this has been coming out in public domain. They're looking at the issue of pricing. They're looking at platform neutrality, how data is used, and whether the usage of data bars the entry of competitors as well. What, according to you, is the most critical thing to look at as far as the Indian context goes and Indian players go?
Number one is level playing field, as you mentioned. Number two, I think the network effect that the big tech bring in, that's at the root of the innovation. So really, we can only regulate it to such an extent that the Indian players do not suffer. But the heart of the matter of anti-competitive practices is the use of data. The amount of data that is collected from Indian citizens, and India is a big market, so how it is used would be very important. And therefore, only the competition law, in my opinion, only the competition law would probably not be able to address this. We need to have, the privacy law. We need to have the IT law. So the entire digital ecosystem should be harmonized in such a manner that there is no scope for regulatory arbitrage. There is no scope for ambiguity, and also there is no scope for a kind of stifling of the growth of the digital economy in the country. The points that you mentioned relating to the market dominance that is happening because of the network effect, the pricing that they can control the pricing, they can take down various applications. Now, these are matters of detail which are very concerning, of course. So these are the very significant aspects where there should be very less discretion left to the competition commissioner, and it should actually be coded. But while coding it, it shouldn't be a hard regulation because, as I said, technology is evolving and evolving very fast. The regulations should be to keep pace with that, which doesn't often happen. And each time to bring it to a parliament to pass it would actually delay the entire process. So principle-based systems should be there, and the rules actually should get into the details of how to take care of these issues of platform neutrality, market dominance, pricing, and the most important thing is use of data. In the Indian context, as you asked me, I think it is the use of data.
Okay, the use of data is the most important. My final question, we are also reading reports that the Parliamentary Committee on Finance may submit a report in the first week of September. What will that be about? What kind of direction would that give to the policy ecosystem, to the government when it comes to regulating the use of data by big tech companies and some of these anti-competitive practices as well?
The chairman of the committee will take a call on this. The members would, of course, be consulted. So I guess you will have to wait for the report, the shape and the content of the report. But I think time has come for parliamentary committee, the government itself, to start thinking about this, because we already have an act in the European Union. We need to have in India, because, as I said, India is one of the biggest markets which is available to the big tech. Many good things are happening, but I think we will also have to ensure that the competition is maintained, the small players do not get stifled, particularly the Indian ones. There is no harm that is caused to citizens who are in these platforms.
All right, Mr. Amar Patnaik, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on the direction that India's regulatory ecosystem can take when it comes to anti-competitive practices of big tech companies, and why is it important to check the usage of data and whether it bars the entry of competitors in the Indian context. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Brought to you by Continental Freeze Dried, the best